Hey guys, I'm back. We are going to be taking a look at the three main parenting styles. So we've discussed prenatal development, we've looked at attachment, we've looked at attachment styles, and now we're going to be taking a look at parenting styles. So there are three main styles. We have authoritarian parenting, permissive parenting, and authoritative parenting. So what you're going to do right now is you are going to take a little survey and you are going to identify the dominant parenting style in your household. So Miss Johnson's going to pass out a yellow parental authority questionnaire, just like this one here. There it is. So you're going to take a few minutes and fill this out. And the way that you are going to do it is by thinking about it. You can think about your mother, you can think about your father, you can think about a grandparent. Think about the person that raised you. One, just try to think about one of those people and answer the questions from that perspective. It doesn't have to be your mother. It's just written that way for some reason. So you're going to answer the questions on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 meaning strongly disagree with the statement, and 5 meaning strongly agree. So after you have finished, and it's double-sided, after you have finished filling out the survey, we're going to show you how to score the questionnaire to determine which of these three parenting styles you might find most dominant in your household. All right, take a few minutes and do that, and then we'll reconvene in a minute. All right. Okay, so it looks like everybody's done. So here's how we're going to score this. You're going to have 3 scores. The authoritarian score, which matches the total as you add up the numbers that you see under authoritarian. So right here. So what you're going to do is you're going to add up your scores, so the 1 through 5s that you selected for these items, and that will be your authoritarian score. Okay. Then you are going to add up these items, and you are going to find your permissive score. And then finally, you can just add up these items right here, and that will be your authoritative score. So I'll give you a little bit of time to do this, and we'll keep the scoring guidelines on the screen here so you guys can refer to that. Actually, an easier way to do this would be just to have your teacher call out these numbers right here. And as she calls these items out, you can just put an AU next to them, and then you'll add those up. Then she can call out these items, and you can just place a P next to these survey items and add those up. And then anything that is left blank will be your authoritative. That might be a quicker way to get this done all together so you finish at the same time. Either way, score it and come up with your 3 subscores. Okay, so it looks like you guys have your 3 subscores. And maybe you could have a quick discussion right now. Just find out who's observing that they have the highest authoritarian score, who might have the highest permissive score, the highest authoritative score, just to see where everyone's scores fell. So if you had your highest score with the authoritarian, this might sound familiar to you. This is my house, my rules. If you don't like it, leave it. It's my way or the highway. What we're finding here in the authoritarian household is there is a very high parent to communication model, parent to child communication model, and there are very high maturity expectations. So in this household, the demand for obedience is very high. The demand for maturity is very high. The amount of communication that goes from parent to child is very high. And the discipline. So that's the expectation that you follow my rules and there's really no discussion about that. That's a very high score in that particular category. lower in the categories of warmth. Not that they can't be warm. It's just that this is typically not a characteristic that it's observed as often in the authoritarian household. And then we typically find lower levels of child to parent communication. So most of the communication in an authoritarian household is going from the parent to the child. Whereas in the permissive household, we see very high child to parent communication. We have lower levels of maturity expectations. We have lower levels of parent to child communication, lower levels of expected obedience, and lower levels of discipline placed upon the child, and generally higher warmth that is expressed or displayed in these households. And then finally, we have the authoritative. Now, this is something to note. Authoritative and authoritarian, they look an awful lot alike. But think about authoritarian maybe as like a government style, like authoritarian, where it's there's a lot of power in the central government, like the parents are the government. And in authoritative, what we're going to find here is the biggest difference is in the communication. So while there's a lot of communication from parent to child, there's also a lot of reciprocated communication. So a lot going from the child to the parent. Typically, what we find in the authoritative is that, yes, there are clear rules, there are expectations, discipline, all of that is expected in this household. However, the main difference between authoritative and authoritarian is that because the communication flows both ways, these expectations can be negotiated. So for example, let's say the rule in this authoritative household is you need to be home by midnight. But let's say the child says to the parents, well, Mom, I've been doing well in school. I've made pretty good decisions. So I'd really like to have my curfew extended for an hour. So this might be something that's allowed in the authoritative household because there's that open communication and there's responsiveness to the child. So authoritarian, my way or the highway, lots of parent to child communication, lower levels of warmth that are displayed, and very high maturity expectations. In permissive, we have a lot of child to parent communication, high levels of warmth, and lower maturity expectations. In authoritative, we have very clear rules that need to be followed, but they can be flexible because of the free flow of communication between parent to child. So what you're going to do right now is you're going to get into small groups, and I'm going to let your teacher decide how you're going to do that. I want you to identify factors that are involved in why parents choose particular parenting styles. What makes your parents choose a parenting style? So think about those factors. Do all parents use the same style with all of the children in the household? And just kind of generally explain what the parenting style looks like in your household. So I'm going to give you about 5 to 10 minutes, however much time seems appropriate for what is left in class, to identify some of these factors. And then perhaps we can bring it back together in a large group discussion. So I'm going to have you pause the video, get into your groups, and discuss these questions in that group. So hopefully you guys had a nice discussion and you came up with some variables such as age of the parents when they had children, maybe how many kids in the family there are, maybe gender was brought into the conversation, maybe girls maybe had a different parenting style imposed on them than the boys did in the family, or maybe it was a combination of all of those factors, and you were able to see that your parenting styles changed perhaps as you grew as well, as your age increased. So what we're going to do next, we're going to take the information you just gathered from taking this parenting survey and your conversation that you just had, and you are going to give your parents a quiz. So you're going to get this right here. It says, how well do you know your child? And you are going to first go through these questions. There are 18 of them, and you're going to make your own answer key. It's important that you make your answer key before you give this quiz to your parents, just because I don't want you to change your mind or have hindsight bias come into play. So get your answer key done first, and then give this quiz to one of your parents or guardians